Have you ever wondered how one small city-state on the Italian peninsula managed to build one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen? An empire that, at its peak, stretched from the drizzly Isles of Britain to the sun-scorched deserts of Mesopotamia. This isn't just a story of conquest and power. It's a tale of innovation, ambition, and the enduring legacy that shaped the Western world. This is the story of Rome. Our journey begins not with emperors and legions, but with a myth. The legend of Romulus and Remus, twin brothers abandoned at birth and suckled by a she-wolf. Romulus, after a fateful dispute with his brother, founded a city on the Palatine Hill in 753 BC. This was Rome. Of course, the reality was probably a bit less dramatic. Historians believe Rome started as a collection of small hilltop villages, strategically located along the Tiber River, a prime spot for trade and defense. For its first 2.5 centuries, Rome was a monarchy, ruled by a series of 7 kings. These early rulers, a mix of Latins, Sabines, and Etruscans, laid the city's foundational stones. They built the first forum, drained the marshlands, and constructed temples. But the Romans grew wary of absolute power. In 509 BC, they overthrew their last king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, and a new chapter began, the Roman Republic. The Republic was a revolutionary concept. Power was now shared, not concentrated in one man's hands. It was based on the principle of SPQR, Senatus Populesque Romanus, the Senate and people of Rome. The government was headed by 2 consuls, elected annually, to prevent any one individual from becoming too powerful. The Senate, an assembly of the city's elder statesmen, advised the consuls and managed state finances. This system of checks and balances was brilliant, but it was far from perfect. Early on, society was starkly divided between the patricians, the wealthy aristocratic class, and the plebeians, the common folk. Much of the Republic's early history is defined by the conflict of the orders, a long struggle by the plebeians to gain political equality. Step by step, through protest and negotiation, they won crucial rights, like the creation of tribunes to represent their interests and the codification of Roman law in the 12 Tables, ensuring that justice was visible to all, not just interpreted by the powerful. With its internal politics slowly stabilizing, Rome began to look outward. What followed were centuries of near-constant warfare. Rome wasn't just fighting for glory. It was fighting for survival, and then for dominance. The Republic first conquered its immediate neighbors in Italy. Then, it set its sights on a formidable rival across the Mediterranean, the powerful maritime empire of Carthage. The Punic Wars, a series of 3 epic conflicts, would decide the fate of the Western Mediterranean. Who could forget the story of Hannibal, the brilliant Carthaginian general who crossed the Alps with elephants to wreak havoc on Italian soil? For years, Hannibal seemed invincible, but Rome's resilience was its greatest weapon. They absorbed devastating losses, adapted their strategies, and eventually, under the leadership of Scipio Africanus, took the fight to Carthage and won. With Carthage defeated, Rome was the undisputed master of the sea. In the following centuries, its legions marched east, conquering Greece, Macedonia, and large parts of Asia Minor. They marched west, subjugating the tribes of Spain and Gaul. The Republic grew vast, and with that size came immense wealth. But this wealth was a double-edged sword. It flooded into the hands of a select few, creating a massive gap between the super-rich and the dirt-poor. Small-time farmers, the traditional backbone of the Roman army, were driven off their land by large slave-run estates called latifundia. They flocked to the city of Rome, forming a volatile, unemployed mob. The late Republic was a period of intense social unrest and political violence. Visionary reformers like the Gracchi brothers tried to pass land reforms to help the poor, but were assassinated by their political opponents. The very fabric of the Republic began to tear. This turmoil gave rise to a new breed of powerful generals, men like Marius Sulla, Pompey, and the most famous of them all, Gaius Julius Caesar. These men commanded armies loyal not to the state, but to them personally. They fought each other for control of Rome in a series of brutal civil wars. Caesar, a military genius and a shrewd politician, conquered Gaul, modern-day France, adding a vast new territory to Rome. His famous crossing of the Rubicon River with his army was an act of open defiance against the Senate. After defeating his rival Pompey, he became the most powerful man in Rome, effectively a king in all but name. He enacted popular reforms, but his ambition and autocratic style worried many senators. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, a group of them, calling themselves the Liberators, assassinated him in the Senate House, hoping to restore the Republic. But it was too late. The Republic was dead. Caesar's assassination plunged Rome into another round of civil wars. From the chaos emerged his adopted son and heir, Octavian. A cool, calculating political operator, Octavian methodically eliminated his rivals, including the famous lovers Mark Antony and Cleopatra of Egypt. By 27 BC, he stood alone, the sole ruler of the Roman world. Wary of Caesar's fate, he was careful not to call himself a king. Instead, he took the title Augustus, the revered one, and Princeps, first citizen. The Roman Empire was born. The reign of Augustus ushered in an unprecedented era of peace and prosperity, known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For the next 200 years, the empire was relatively stable. Trade flourished along a vast network of Roman roads, and a single currency and legal system made commerce easier than ever before. The cities of the empire became centers of culture and sophistication, boasting magnificent architecture like aqueducts, amphitheaters, and public baths. Literature, art, and philosophy thrived. Virgil wrote his epic poem, the Aeneid. Historians like Livy and Tacitus chronicled Rome's past. Stoic philosophy, with its emphasis on duty and virtue, became popular among the ruling class. Of course, the line of emperors that followed Augustus was a mixed bag. There were wise and capable rulers like Trajan, who expanded the empire to its greatest extent, and Hadrian, who consolidated its borders, famously building Hadrian's Wall in Britain. There were philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, who penned his meditations while on military campaign. But there were also tyrants like Caligula, who was infamously erratic, and Nero, who, legend has it, fiddled while Rome burned. Despite the quality of the man on the throne, the machinery of the empire, the vast civil service, and the professional army kept things running. However, by the 3rd century AD, the cracks began to show. The empire faced a period known as the Crisis of the 3rd Century. It was beset by problems on all fronts, constant civil wars as generals fought for the imperial throne, barbarian invasions along its long frontiers, economic collapse due to debased currency and runaway inflation, and even plagues that decimated the population. The empire nearly broke apart, was saved temporarily by a series of strong authoritarian emperors like Diocletian and Constantine. Diocletian, realizing the empire was too vast for one man to rule, divided it into a tetrarchy, a rule of 4. He also launched the last and most severe persecution of Christians, a religious sect that had been growing steadily throughout the empire. A few years later, Emperor Constantine would completely reverse this policy. After a vision before a crucial battle, he converted to Christianity. In 313 AD, his Edict of Milan granted religious tolerance throughout the empire, paving the way for Christianity to become the state religion. Constantine also moved the capital of the empire from Rome to a new city he built in the east, Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul. This move symbolized a fundamental shift. The center of gravity of the Roman world was moving eastward. The Eastern Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, would flourish for another 1,000 years. The Western Roman Empire was in terminal decline. The economic and political problems continued. Waves of Germanic tribes, themselves pushed by the Huns from Central Asia, crossed the frontiers. They weren't always invaders. Many were hired as mercenaries to defend the empire, but their loyalties were often questionable. The city of Rome itself was sacked by the Visigoths in 410, and again by the Vandals in 455. The final blow came in for 76 AD, when the last Western Roman emperor, a young boy, ironically named Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer, and so the Western Roman Empire fell. But did it really end? The roads they built still crisscross Europe. The languages that evolved from Latin, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian are spoken by hundreds of millions. Their legal principles form the basis of many modern legal systems. Their ideas about republicanism and government influenced the founding fathers of the United States. Their engineering marvels, like the Colosseum and the aqueducts, still stand as a testament to their genius. The story of Rome is a story of rise and fall, of republic and empire, of incredible achievement and catastrophic failure. It's a story that continues to echo through the centuries, a permanent foundation of our modern world. Thank you so much for joining me on this whirlwind tour of Roman history. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button. Subscribe for more epic stories from the past, and let me know in the comments which civilization you'd like to explore next. Until then, stay curious.